You mentioned time. I wanted to share something with you that I don't share with very many people. In fact, I've only told my wife about this. Have you heard of a book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman?
No, the alter ego effect. I would have to, I'm trying to think of what I would define as an alter ego.
Well, you mentioned watches, and I refused to wear watches for years, which you probably guessed by now, but I started wearing I got my grandfather's watch here. He was my first mentor, and he was a really important person in my life. I started wearing his watch recently. Finally got a hold of it, just over the summer, actually. Why am I wearing this watch? Well, okay, so this book, Alter Egos, The Alter Ego Effect, Todd Herman talks about, a lot of people who excel in specific areas, a lot of times they'll develop an alter ego sort of just to get them into a mindset of performance and excellence. I remember one example in particular. He was talking about, I think it was Bo Jackson, the athlete Bo Jackson. Bo knows. Played football, baseball.
Supreme
Anyway,
athlete, very
yeah.
talented and
He pointed to the alter ego effect, whenever he was performing on the field, he was somebody else. He had to be somebody else to reach those levels of performance. And, it could be
uh,
like, so like if I was like, if I'm, I play the bass guitar, if I'm practicing the bass, my alter ego could be like some form of my favorite bass player, inspiring me. And I pretend I'm that person and approach the practicing with confidence. The thing about having an alter ego is you can have more than one, for different focuses in your life. So I have an alter ego. It's called a totem. You have to have some kind of totem for each alter ego, something you wear, put on that
oh
gets you
wow.
there. I wanted to share with you my alter ego and why I'm wearing this
Oh,
watch.
fun. Okay.
So it's pretty nuts. Actually, it's something I came up with a long time ago. As part of it ended up part of an unfinished art project, and I was born in 1983. My alter ego is Agent 83, an intergalactic spy sent here to engage in many diverse experiences as possible, penetrating different aspects of society and going as deep or as far up as I can, gathering all this experience and information while engaging in subversive value creation. So
Ooh.
yeah, so every time I put on this watch, I'm like, I'm Agent 83, and it means a lot to me because that way of living life is, I've done a lot of different things, but I've also held myself back in a lot of different ways as well. And when I put on this watch, I feel like I can really focus like I want to on that aspect of my life.
So it's kind of like a mask. Well, just to reiterate, I'm sure you probably know this, but the concept of a person comes from the Greek drama. And there, you're living in Greece, and there's the proscenium arch of the theater. And when you enter the theater, you're stepping into a different world. And the actors in ancient Greece were men, and there were no sound system, so they had to broadcast. And so the personas were the masks that the players, that the actors wore, and they had little kind of megaphone shapes in them. You'll probably see them around now, and that is the meaning of persona. It is an identity that you create. So this kind of reminds me of that alter ego thing. The other thing that it reminds me of in terms of flow are a couple of things. One is motor neurons, or mirror neurons rather, where we have these things called mirror neurons that kind of allow us to perceive and in a way put ourselves in someone else's shoes. They also have applications in phantom limb pain. But anyway, it involves this empathy experience. And when we have an empathy experience, we get a down regulation neurologically of something called the default mode network, which is the regular network in my brain that makes me feel like I'm me, who I am acting in the world that as I do. So I'm curious. I don't know the answer, but I'm curious is that when you have a personal right where you put on your grandfather's watch or you put on the mask and you step out into the theater, you become someone else. That somehow changes the default mode network. And one thing about flow states is there is a downregulation of this default mode network of who I am. It's somehow involved in experiences of time, and time alters. And I find that personally fascinating. Just to add one little piece, one of Miyamoto's Musashi's teachers was a Zen priest at the time by the name of Takuan Soho, and he wrote a book specifically for sword masters called The Unfettered Mind, where he would talk about flow states. And if you are facing in a combat situation, if you are facing an enemy and your mind gets distracted, that's when your opponent can strike you down. I love that you become that alter ego. I wonder what it would be like going back and forth. But there's one other thing that I would want to just add, and then I'll kick it back to you so you can riff on this, is there's something called dissociative identity disorder. Multiple personalities, right? Multiple personalities. So you can have one person that has 6, 7, 8 personalities, usually trauma induced. And so when the person has been receiving trauma, usually when they were young, in order to deal with the situation, the personality recedes and something else can pop right in there. But if you look under fMRI and the brain scan, a person with an alternate identity, if their alter is blind, if their avatar is blind, you can put them in an MRI setting and their visual cortex is shut down. You can wave things in front of their face and it doesn't even respond on their, so the entire brain changes in this dissociative identity disorder. Anyway, I'll kick it back to you. I'll let you riff on that one. 83.
Man, so many great. I'm glad we're recording this. When I put on the watch, when I tell myself I'm Agent 83, and I literally whisper into the watch, Agent 83 checking in to my intergalactic overlords. But
That's so funny.
It's really, yeah, it's a mindset thing, making bold moves and acting with, yeah, totally. My mind does become unfettered.